All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So, thank you everyone for joining us today for the couch cushion or the couch conference behind between the cushions, our 2 cents. Back when COVID hit, our three companies, Client Book, Smithee Group, and Punchmark, we decided to throw together something that could really help retailers, or that we thought could provide some value to the jewelry industry. Obviously, a lot of people didn't know what was going to be happening during that time, what was going to happen to their businesses, to their life's work. And so within a few weeks, we put together the Couch Conference, and hopefully you each were able to attend it. If not, it was a great event. We had about 850 attendees there, some incredible speakers from the industry. I know I learned a lot. We got some great feedback on from our attendees, and everyone seemed to learn something that could help them get through this time. Also, with it being COVID, we felt a responsibility to give back to the community. So we decided to take the proceeds that we earned from it and donate it to Feeding America, which led to over 60,000 meals being contributed to Feeding America. So we really appreciate all the attendees that were able to make it. And great job there being able to help out with that. I'm going to turn it over to Ross. He'll talk about what we have planned for the upcoming Couch Conference events, and then we'll go to Ben from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. And, as Brandon said, the first Couch Conference was much bigger of a success than we even expected. We put it together in a matter of a couple weeks, and it was pretty timely. Obviously the coronavirus was a big catalyst in the small business owners having time, to focus on the education and get involved. But the fact is, we will be continuing to crash your couch in the years to come. So, backed by popular demand, save the date for the Couch Conference 2.0, which comes up in September 14th and 15th. And that'll be a Monday and a Tuesday of the week. The theme is generally about how to activate your business. And last theme was to reset, because it was a time to really, think about what was going wrong, what wasn't working, how to digitize your business. But this is about activating your business, and it's not just the business owners. We're focused on bringing teams, getting everyone in the store involved, just in time to get you prepared for the fourth quarter and ramp up your sales for the holidays. So, with that said, save the date. Like I said, September 14th and 15th, and I will hand it off to Ben to speak a few words about what we'll be focusing on today.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks, Brandon. Again, we are so stoked to be back here with this interim session. And the whole goal is, as they both spoke about, is that, between our core iterations of the Couch Conference, we are going to have these in-depth sessions where we have, sort of breakouts or videos and all of this content that's going to be more in-depth, longer sessions to break out more topics and things that you all want to hear, things that we hear feedback from you on, and things that were big hits at the main Couch Conference sessions. So as we get going here, just encourage you all to stay engaged with us, stay on social. If you're not following us already, at the Couch Conference on Instagram, we do have an Instagram handle and profile that you can follow along with the content and updates. And you did hear it here first. By popular demand, we are going to be back with the Couch Conference 2.0, September 14th and 15th. I threw it in the chat there, so make sure that you have it marked on your calendars. And do me a favor and just throw a 1 in the chat box if you are excited for this next iteration. Excellent. Adam, it might be you, because I think other people are hearing me. And Denise, thanks for the feedback. I really appreciate it. We do appreciate all the great feedback. As Brandon and Ross mentioned, we were overwhelmed by the amount of support that we received about the Couch Conference 1.0. And we're just excited to bring you even more. So today's session, is going to be really awesome. We have a few really awesome panelists. When we say it's a panel, it's really going to be 3 sort of short micro sessions, and then we're going to do Q&A at the end. So please make sure to type in your questions. You can use the Q&A function just like during the Couch Conference. There's a Q&A section below, and then there is a chat section as well. Make sure that if you're meaning to chat something out to all of your attendees, not just us, the panelists, make sure that you are using in the chat, make sure it says to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, it's just going to come privately to us. And we want the whole community to be able to hear it and see everything that you're chatting about. So make sure that your selection is selected to all panelists and attendees in the chat. And then in the Q&A, make sure to use that for any questions that you have going on, or any questions that you have for the panelists. So when we came up with today's session, the topic, we wanted to look at what is something that is constantly being asked. What are the topics that are constantly being asked by the industry, by industry experts, and people that we hear feedback from? And so we put together today's panel to service just that. We have 3 amazing panelists, like I said, Mark Smelzer, Emily Vesselin, and Cody Giles. And in there, they're going to talk about 3 very important and fully circumferencing topics today. And so those 3 topics are going to be B2B advertising, which Mark is going to cover. And then we're going to look at PR and how to get earned media. And then we're going to round that off with B2C advertising. So how are you reaching the consumers? So this is applicable to not only just the retailers in the room, but the brands and manufacturers, independent designers, everyone that's in the full business of our industry. So we're going to look at B2B, B2C, and also your PR and earned media. And if you haven't guessed, we were having a little technical difficulties on the back end, which is why I was stalling, but I think we are all good to go now. So without further ado, we're going to kick it off with our first of 3 presenters. If we want to go ahead and advance the slides, we will get going here with Mark Smelzer, who is the publisher of JCK Magazine and JCK Online. Many of you know Mark. He is a rock star in our industry. If you don't know someone in the industry, Mark does. And he's my go-to for that. He's got great relationships throughout, just a phenomenal person, professional, and just all around just nice dude. And that's what we are promoting here at the Couch Conference, is just good people doing great things. So without further ado, Mark, we are going to kick it off to you, brother. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was really a gracious introduction and truly appreciated. Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today. Yes, I'm the publisher of JCK Magazine and JCK Online. I am also a consultant these days, Mark Smelzer, LLC. I'm the publisher of the magazine and the website on a consulting basis, but I do some other projects. But I'm excited to be here and bring you up to date for my role today, bring you up to date on where B2B advertising is now. So thank you for that first screen. What I thought it'd be helpful would be to put the current state of B2B advertising into 3 specific categories: brand awareness, product-driven advertising, and content marketing. And I'll give you a little bit of background on all 3, if I can get to the next slide. So brand awareness is basic advertising that it's more about frequency of being seen. It's more about getting a logo out there. It's more about a steady presence. And it's more about going wide. So it really works for companies that want to remind people that they're there, be seen frequently, lots of impressions, lots and lots of reach. And I have 2 examples here to show. Wilkerson at the top of JCK Online. Oh, and I meant to mention at the start of this, all my examples are going to be about from JCK and JCK Online, just because, you know, I know from where to pull them. But all of the industry's B2B publications have options like this. So illustrations are all mine, but there are other opportunities out there as well. So on the right, you see the homepage of JCK Online. You see that big banner at the top. Wilkerson has purchased that ad, and they're going to get in 1 month's time tens of thousands of impressions of just people seeing that ad. Their click-through rate might not be that great, but they're going to be seen, and they're going to be seen repeatedly. On the left is the JCK News Daily newsletter, and it has its own type of banner advertising. It's a little bit more focused than just being on the website and speaking to the entire industry. On our newsletter and other newsletters in the industry, you'll have 20, 25,000 people who have self-selected to receive the news directly into their inbox on a daily basis. So this is going to be higher on a per person basis in terms of rate, but you're definitely targeting a super engaged audience. So, but again, two great examples of brand awareness. So, product driven. Some advertisers are really not necessarily looking to get just a repeat image of their logo or a repeat image of their presence. They're looking to have style and design and product features be a part of that advertising. And here are two great examples of that. So this is the role that print plays still with JCK Magazine and other publications, not, all magazines. The role that print plays is it provides a really beautiful, glossy, large-scale format. I remember being in an emerging tech sales conference in like '96, and someone referred to a magazine. They said, remember, this magazine is high tech as well, because years of research have gone into the quality of the paper, the reflective covering, so on and so forth. So, but at any rate, you can see this Royal Chain ad here. They've gone a long way towards making their brand look stylish and cool and hip and really focus on photography, perfect for print. On the left hand, this is a really hot and emerging form of B2B advertising that is also very much about product, and that is advertising on Instagram and Facebook. And basically what this is we have built, thanks in large part to Emily Vesselin's work, who's coming up soon, we have built a really devoted, large following. I think we're at like 37,000 followers for our Instagram page and about 25,000 for our Facebook page. And much in the same way that historically we might have sold someone a mailing list or later an email list, we can basically sell the list of our followers on our social media. We don't give the names and addresses to you, but what we do is we allow an advertiser to put an ad to push it to our followers so that it goes into the news feed of our followers. And again, this is great. Here's a Lightbox ad in the example, but especially with Instagram, because Instagram is all about style and design and fashion and product. Plus it reaches a younger, more millennial audience. Instagram has really become a hot platform to do product-driven advertising. And then finally, let's talk a little bit about content marketing. So if I could go to the next screen, please. Content marketing has been exploding over the last 5 years. Content marketing in its best form is where an advertiser picks a topic that speaks to a pain point for which they have a solution. And they create content that speaks to that pain point generically. So the article is not all about why that company is the best company around. The article is about this pain point that, in our case, retailers have, and different ways for which that pain point can be solved or the challenge can be met. And the assumption is obvious that the sponsor of this, whose ads are exclusive to the page while reading the content, who is recognized as a sponsor of the content on the edit flow, that sponsor also provides a solution to this pain point. And native is fantastic because while it's a bigger effort and it's more expensive, oftentimes the native articles in any given week on JCK Online are the best read articles of the week, because they specifically speak to something that the advertiser knows that everybody is interested and or worried about. So you can get some really great traction with native advertising. The new addition to the content marketing world is native webinars, where a brand like Gemfind Digital, in this example here, this is an example of a house ad promoting the webinar, but someone like a Gemfind will also speak to a need, like how to position your business online after COVID-19. GemFind has great solutions to that end, but their deck that they presented, the webinar that they presented, began generically about the challenges that we all face, and then at the end talked about some of the solutions that GemFind can provide. So content marketing is great as well. And that's it. In this short time, I didn't really want to take up much more time than that, but this gives you an idea of the three main types of B2B advertising going on right now.
Thank you so much, Mark. That's awesome. I think that just understanding these areas, understanding the value propositions between each of these is so opportunistic for everyone on there, because a lot of people, and what we'll ask in the Q&A and what I'm sure people have questions on is, you know, the appropriateness of each of those and how they interplay. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to having you back for the Q&A here at the end.
Thanks.
All right. Next up is the one, the only Emily Vesselin. And she is, among everything else she does in terms of writing, she's a senior editor and social media director for JCK Magazine. I will say that there's the people that will call when you're blessed to be able to be asked to do an interview or contribute to something. There's people that call you and you're always like, that's exciting. Can I see what you're going to write or things like that? But it's one of those things where I get an email or something from Emily. It's like immediate response, boom, done.
Oh,
You know, thank you, Emily, for the opportunity to work together so many times.
Totally. And, you know, I call you often. I'm always like, Ben, hi, it's me again. It's me again.
No, I appreciate it. And I think one of the things that even you'll touch on today is like the value of good partnership like that. It's one of those things where you can have good partnership and still have unbiased media, believe it or not today. And it's just one of those great things. So without further ado, Emily's going to talk to us about PR, earned media, and the value of that today. So Emily, take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me. How fun is this? So the first few minutes of this, just so you know, I didn't hear anything that Mark said because my microphone was all messed up. So, but I know he's brilliant and that it was awesome. But if anyone wants to reference something that he said to me, I will not know. Okay, sorry, Mark. So talking about pitching your news and stories to editorial, the first thing that you always want to think about is it newsworthy? Is it a piece of information or news that will be of interest to many people? And also how you want to think what the appropriate platform for that news is. Is it something that would actually perform better on one of your social media channels? Would you actually get more traction on Instagram than you would in a piece of press? If the answer is no, then by all means pitch to the media, because we are constantly looking for interesting content. And now in the age of digital media, we have daily needs that, I mean, we're an open mouth for amazing, interesting, quirky, funny, touching stories and content. So that's the message I definitely want to send out. I mean, even if you're not sure, touch base with those journalists that you read and that you admire to see if it's something they might be interested in. So think about what you want amplified, and if the media is, if a media outlet is how you feel it could best be amplified before you pitch. And then think about how newsworthy and interesting it will be to the general public, whether it's B2B or B2C. And then also, what did I say here? Topics and stories that are clickable and sticky can also be newsworthy. So yeah, I was thinking about this and thinking about how some of the most viral and kind of like far-reaching pieces of content are not, you know, we've changed locations and we have, you know, a new CEO. These things are huge internally, huge shifts. But you know, like the woman with the gorilla mask, that piece of content that went everywhere, where she was talking, I don't know if it was a gorilla mask, but it was some sort of mask in the car that was the most viral piece of content a couple of years ago. That if it's something odd or interesting, it can actually be bigger news than something that's a little bit more staid and a little bit more insider baseball. So I think that shifting your perspective on what news is a really good thing in this day and age, because the internet has changed the whole ball game when it comes to what is going to perform well and what's going to be read and seen by people. So there's that. And let me go to the next slide if I could. Okay. And then knowing your publications and your website.
Hey everyone, I think we got just frozen there with Emily. I'm going to give it just a minute here to see if we can get her back online. Sorry for the technical difficulties. And the team on the backside will be working on making sure to connect and get all that through. Can everybody just do me a favor and toss a 1 down in there if you can hear me, and make sure it's not our overall connection? Excellent. Okay. While we're doing this and while we're getting back connected, why don't we do this? Why don't we call an audible? And if we can get Cody's section queued up here, we'll go ahead and jump to Cody and we'll come back. Thank you, man. The team on the back end, let me just thank Maddie and Tiffany, 2 people that helped make Couch Conference really successful, and the Convoy Events team overall. They always make this happen. And so, just a huge shout out to Convoy Events and Maddie and Tiffany on the back end of this, making things go smoothly. Next up, Cody Giles. He's the Director of Integrated Strategy at our firm, at the Smithee Group. He is a TSG superhero. And Cody is going to be talking to us about paid advertising, but in the B2C space. So how can you take your brand to the consumer? And what is the biggest way and the biggest opportunity that we're seeing that today? Cody, I'm going to let you take it away, brother.
All right, thank you so much for that. So yeah, as been mentioned, I'm the Director of Integrated Strategy here at the Smithee Group. So on a daily basis, I'm really working with both our brand and media teams to kind of cast the overall vision and strategy, both from an organic standpoint and what we're doing for our clients on social to paid. So what are we doing in the paid marketing space when it comes to digital on Facebook and Instagram and Google and Pinterest and all the platforms, just determining what that looks like and helping our clients grow and succeed. So what I want to talk about today, and we can move to the next slide, thank you so much, is building the consumer relationship. And it's, when we think about it, and we've talked about this a lot, small brands always trying to think big, and big brands are always wanting to think small. But what if brands have started trying to think like humans and become the human brand? This makes so much sense, right? If we're thinking about social, as we're placing ads in digital, people are scrolling through their personal newsfeed. They're seeing information from their friends and from their families. So when they see information from a brand, how does that become more human at the same time? So if you've heard Ben speak, I think he talked about it at the Couch Conference, even before that, becoming the human brand. How do you get, or how do you move the needle from a consumer knowing that you exist to cherishing you as a brand? So what are some brands that we cherish? Maybe let's throw a few in the comments. So what brands are really important to everyone today? Just throw this as an audible too. Any in the comments? Which brands do we really like? Disney Plus, great example. Nike, yeah, Patagonia. So we think of some of the big brands here. What we see, Netflix, even these bigger brands, at the same time, they're also thinking of ways to become more human, ways that they can kind of break down that barrier of it seeming like it's so corporate and it's so far off. We see this through AT&T recently launching a new campaign that talks more about their employees and the stories that they have. So they're putting that mix in there to kind of introduce themselves as more than just a corporate brand and really digging into who the people are behind the brand. So that kind of parlays into the first point where we say, how do you represent yourself on social? What are you doing on that aspect? So are you just posting only polished assets, only products? You're never really showing who it is behind the counter, who it is behind the brand. Emily, I've hijacked the presentation. So we'll come back to that here in just a bit. But yeah, how do you represent yourself on social? What are you doing there? Showing off that more human side. We've talked about this before, but even through COVID, and maybe it forced more people into this even earlier when you think about everyone kind of started working from home and you couldn't post that same content that you were posting. So people had to think on their toes about what they could be posting, and a lot of that ended up being more relatable content. It started to be more personal, and that's the shift that consumers are looking out for, and that's the way the brands are moving. The second piece to that is, how are you involved in the community? So as a retailer, as a brand, what are you doing in the community? What ways are you serving? It's important that consumers know that the dollars that they're investing into you are then being invested back to them through the community. This is such a huge piece of this. And we look at here to just the screenshot that I've included in the presentation. It says, "Congrats, graduates." This is a sign. So a retailer actually took the opportunity to celebrate graduates in their local area who couldn't have the full ceremony now that COVID had happened and all that was limited. So this was a great example of just coming together and thinking, what can we do for the community right now? And what ways can we show that we're here and that we're a presence, that we're established? Again, this one-to-one connection now feels more human than ever. Finally, thinking about what causes matter to you or what's important to you, what core values do you have? This is obviously part of being a human overall, but as a brand, this can be represented through that as well. So what causes matter to you, and do those align with your audience? So do you care about the things that your audience cares about? Because they're looking for this as well. They have their own core values and they want to support brands that can get behind those causes that they support. So does that kind of align together? This is important for all audiences, but specifically for Gen Z, which we're going to talk about next. So, for a long time, it's always been millennial this, millennial that, this unicorn millennial market. What do we do? How do we get to them? How do we engage with them? And that's been really important for a long time. But what we have to think about now is the rise of Gen Z. You can see here the age is 23 and under, but they're in their 20s now. They are the active shoppers and they are your new consumer. And they also right now hold 44 billion in buying power. So while we may just easily dismiss them and think they don't have the money, that's not who I'm going after, this stat here shows this alone, that they are in the market, they have the money to spend, and they want to find brands that they love to spend that with. And they're also the most diverse generation as well. So this kind of plays into what we're going to talk about here next. A few things that we know about them if I can go back for just a little bit, thanks. A few things we know about them. So first, from the social awareness perspective, again, like I mentioned, they support the brands that represent their core values. So they are, again, seeking out the brands that care about the causes that they care about, and they're willing to make a stance for those. They're also not as loyal to the same brands as their family. So even if, let's say, you've had a retail business for 20 to 30 years and you've watched young Ben grow up since he was a young age because he's came into the store with his parents, when he has that buying power and he's ready to make the decision, we don't have that guarantee that he's going to shop with the same brands that his parents shopped with. He's looking for those new experiences, those unique experiences, and those brands that he can learn to trust and love. And sometimes that isn't always the brands that his parents have grown up with and that his parents have used, his or her. The second piece of that is diversity. So right now, because this is the most diverse generation, stats show that they do feel a lack of representation in advertising and marketing. So when they look out and we see social ads and digital ads, for Gen Z, they don't always feel they're being fully represented in marketing. But what we know is they have a positive affinity to brands that do show this diversity both in their feeds and even amongst their core culture and their staff and things of that nature. So this is really important. And, this is the conversation that's happening lately just with the Black Lives Matter movement, et cetera, about this representation of diversity, even as we think about it on social. So how do we start to show that diversity more? It's really important that, especially from a Gen Z perspective, because they are the most digitally savvy generation, they're able to seek these things out and dig really deep in the internet. But what they're looking to see is that this diversity is shown in the feed, and that's followed up by what they experience in the store. So for brands that are making more commitments to what they're doing on social to show diversity, they're also making those same commitments to have that represented in their culture and in their staff. The final part of this then is now from that digital standpoint of building digital experiences that set you apart. So when we talk about the paid advertising perspective, what we're really focused on right now is making sure that the experiences that someone has on social, even through an advertising perspective, really lends well to the experience that they would have back on the website or even back into the store. So what we know is that standard social ads like carousels and videos, they can help you convey the message and they can get your point across, but they're not going to help you stand out in the feed. The most important thing from an advertising perspective, especially on social, is that we need to craft an experience that's going to have someone stop the scroll whenever they're just mindlessly scrolling through their social. What can we provide to them that's going to jump out on the screen, get them to stop, and have them be interested? What we found now is that these advanced social structures like instant experiences are allowing us to leverage artificial intelligence through the Facebook platforms and customizations for these one-of-a-kind experiences where it's something different that they don't always see in their feed. So when we come across it, it's going to have them stop. really be interested and then even click through. And then we're getting that good engagement that we're looking for from that standpoint. And we're actually going to go through here and look at a few instant experience examples to show what this looks like. So the first one, before we dive in, these are all GIFs, so you actually be able to see them in real time. But this first one is something called an instant storefront. And a few of these are going to involve what's called the Facebook catalog. So if you're not familiar with that, just really quick, the Facebook catalog allows you to upload products into Facebook from your website. And then as you're showing ads, these products can dynamically repopulate based on each person that sees them to make sure that each experience that someone has is unique to them. As you can see, it's really an advanced method compared to running an ad with a single image or a single video or just a limited 3 sets of carousels that you have. So if we play this instant storefront, what you see here is that we have this hero image. When I click into it, now I can see a list of products. And these again are going to populate and sort based on which ones are getting most clicks or based on what Facebook thinks is the most popular based on the target audience. Then from there, they click that, they go directly back to your website to view that. So we'll watch it again one more time. But see how before, if a standard carousel, we're having one go horizontally to view products. Now with the storefront experience, they're going vertically and they're scrolling vertically. So through this, a great example of a way that you can really beef up your ads, again, push products that you're looking to sell. And then like I mentioned, because we're using artificial intelligence and the algorithms here, we're able to resort all these images in real time based on data that shows what's getting the most engagements, what the target audiences are interested in. So we're delivering real results in real time that are getting us much better metrics than, again, a standard image or carousel. It's a great experience. For the next kind we have here, it's an instant lookbook. And this mimics, most of you probably are familiar with Instagram shopping. So if I make a post, I can tag products in it. And then as you're viewing the feed, I can stop on an organic post. When I click into it, now I can see, just like something would be tagged with a person, I can now see products that are actually tagged. This instant lookbook experience kind of takes this to the next level for the ad. So we see here, I click into it, I can see a product here. It's a lifestyle photo that has many different pieces in it. Now through that Facebook catalog, I can tag what pieces are in that. So a great example of this is putting up an image of a hand with several rings on it and several bracelets. I use that image, and right below that, I can tag each product. So essentially what's happening here, people are shopping the look, which again is what they're primed to do through organic social as they're browsing through Instagram. Now we're bringing this experience over for Facebook and Instagram ads. And we're able to even curate this with multiple options. So if you wanted to make a style guide, you could say best work from home styles. Now you have an image that has different pieces there. For a night out on the town, another image there. So you're able to create multiple iterations or situations to show off what the best looks are. This also allows you to group products together to show what does this curated look seem like, and then how do I then get them to purchase multiple products at one time. So a great way to bring all that together for a unique experience. And the final type of instant experience that we'll talk about is a form. So let's say, you know, when we talk about media, one of the best tools we still have is email marketing. So getting that customer information and being able to reach out and talk to them one-on-one through email marketing. What if I wanted to try to build up my newsletter list? And I know people have visited my website, so they've shown some interest. Now, how do I collect their information? Through an instant form, we can do just that. So we can create an audience that is people that have visited our website in the past, and now show them an ad, maybe with an offer. Maybe we say, hey, sign up for our newsletter, receive 10% off your first purchase. They can do all this directly from Facebook or Instagram without leaving the app. They've submitted their information. Now we have that as a brand or retailer. Now they're in our list. And again, we're growing that population base, still providing really great and unique experiences that are one of a kind that do stand out on the feed to help us grow the brand. So with that, that was the few portions that I wanted to talk about with you all today.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cody.
Of course.
Super valuable information, and I'm sure there'll be questions. I know I have a couple questions to follow up even as well. But now let's jump back with Emily back into PR and earned media mode. We'll let Emily kind of segue back into her presentation and kick off right where she left off. Thanks, Emily.
I'm so sorry. I live right outside of DC, and every contractor in Washington, DC is at home surrounding me in my neighborhood. So apologies. All right, back to pitching your news and stories to editorial. Okay, so obviously it's important to vet the publications and the editors that you are interested in having cover your news. And it seems like an obvious thing, but I do get, and I know my colleagues at JCK too get the occasional, hey, I have a new skincare line, or I have a new, I make pencils. And obviously they're getting my name off of Cision or one of the other databases that will give you sort of mass amounts of editor emails, and they're blanketing emails out to kind of the media world, hoping that they get some bites. Not a great thing to do, I would say. You really want to make sure that you know the reporter that you're pitching to, know what they cover and know what their beat is. So, and I mean, you don't have to get up into the sort of minutia of like, oh, I cover, retail versus design, but obviously everything that should, if somebody doesn't cover jewelry at all or retail at all, you want to not pitch to that editor. So I'll do the next slide. Let's see. Okay, so pitches, I prefer pitches in email. I feel like it's the most professional, and I also feel like I won't miss anything. And I've heard from other reporters who have said, oh, we get DMs, and I do get DMs sometimes, but they do get lost in the sort of the role of personal DMs that you get too. So I prefer an email pitch, and that's just me. And you may have a relationship with a reporter or an editor who's like, DM me, that's great, text me, whatever. But I feel like you can't go wrong with an email. And I just want to say that there's not a need to write a lot. Just be as succinct as possible and spell out your news very clearly. And somebody who's reading through several pitches a day, sometimes dozens of pitches a day, will want to pluck the information from your email really quickly. So put it at the top, make it really, really quick. Actually, my favorite kind of pitch comes from sort of savvy PR people, or anybody, I mean, also business owners, retailers, where they just say, hey, Emily, this is going on. Any interest in hearing more? And if there's no interest, then it's just a nice friendly hello. No, I don't think it's a fit for us right now, but thank you so much for the email. But if there is interest, it's yes, love to hear more. Do you have pictures? Let's do something. Let's do something for online or for print. So I love sort of just the one-line pitch. Obviously, you want to have it packed with information. You want to make it enticing, but you don't have to spin it. And I think that's where some people get they kind of waste energy in trying to make it look like an article that they want to see. And I think you can just back up off of that and just say, we have a new collection. This is why it's interesting. We've never used enamel in this way. We've never used this gemstone before. Whatever the news is, just be very plain spoken about it. And it really will speak for themselves, because the editors and writers will be able to pluck sort of what they need, and they'll be able to attach it to other things they've been writing about or into larger stories. So easier for you. Just make it really simple for yourself. Get to the point of your news really quickly. Include photos of products and people involved in your pitch. And then I would say always send high resolution photos, because it cuts out that next email of, thank you very much, love to write about this, but can I get your high-res images? So just go ahead and send them with them. The link to the box is fine. Link to Google Drive is fine. But make sure that they're high resolution, at least 300 DPI. And I would say 5x7. If it's a print story, it would need to be more like 300 DPI and 8x10. But as long as it's 300 DPI and not a postage stamp, I think you're totally fine. And then just a note about embargoes. An embargo on a pitch or a piece of news is when you're asking somebody to wait on writing about it or publishing it. And I think that I haven't seen them as much in recent years, but they are a little bit, we sort of roll our eyes, to be honest, when we see them, because the news cycle has changed so much that when we get a piece of news in and we're excited about it and we'd love to work with you on it, we want to start working on it right away. There are some exceptions. If it's some ultra exclusive or ultra, undercover and for some reason needs to be sort of shrouded in secrecy, then put an embargo on it, say why, it's because this, we're worried about, our competition or whatever it is that you're worried about. But if it's just a regular piece of news, just pitch it the night before you feel comfortable it being widely decimated in the news. That's just my 2 cents. between the cushions. Okay, and then following up, you feel free to follow up. I would say a few days later, a week later, and I think that that's funny, between the cushions. And I think that a follow up is completely appropriate. You're not bugging anybody. You're not. You know, people certainly have time to have, you know, a new email roll in saying just checking in on this. And I think that just a word about that. Editors and reporters who don't respond, don't take it personally. Some people get hundreds of pitches a day, hundreds of emails, but editors that respond in a way that is haughty or sort of like, don't waste my time, I would just gently urge you to find other editors, because in this day and age, like we're in a very symbiotic ecosystem here, and if somebody is being rude to you, it's not worth your time, and you don't need anyone to be rude to you. So please know that there are other editors who would be excited to work with you. And if there's a publication that you really have your heart set on, you know, I guess sometimes it's worth a little bit of abuse, but it really shouldn't be like that. It's not, you know, 1994 when editors, you know, were getting their makeup done for free every morning. So I would say just move on. Okay, preach. Okay, and I will move on. Pitching your news and stories to editorial, understanding the flow of editorial. And I'll just be really quick here. So most editors and writers are filing stories daily for online portals and social media feeds. They're constantly in need of things to write about. So like I said, trust your gut. If something's newsy or interesting, just, you know, get it out there. Also, ask about if you feel like your following would be more responsive to a piece of news or content on a media's social feed, an Instagram or a Facebook, then ask about that. You know, I've had a couple of people recently, it's just starting, saying like, okay, so you're passing on this. Can we get a social hit? And I'll think, yeah, maybe, or yes, or if it's something really beautiful but doesn't really have a lot of grist news-wise, then that's perfect for me for social, because then, you know, I can do a quick little interview with you, and I have your gorgeous new emerald, what have you, with a little quote from you, and, you know, it's great for us, and hopefully it's great for you. And so I think that also, you know, shifting your perspective about what is good for social versus what is good for a full-blown story is something to sort of muse on. And then also, I think this is last, just striving to develop authentically friendly relationships with editors, not in a pandering, weird, you know, inauthentic way. Just really, you know, if you're interested in jewelry news, if you're interested, whether it's B2B or B2C, if you read it and if you're a fan of it, then, you know, go ahead and follow the writers that you like on Instagram. And if you feel like commenting on one of their posts, great. I have a couple of retailers who I've become close with just because we have similar sort of, you know, our interests dovetail outside of work. And so I'll post and they'll post, and I think of them when I think about people who could, you know, speak on certain subjects for, say, like large scale features. And also I will say that a lot of us work alone. I work in this room and commute up to New York occasionally pre-pandemic. So I think everyone's sort of down to chat if they have time, if they're not on deadline. And you're not, again, I don't want you to feel like you're, you know, impinging on people's time. That these relationships are really super important to us, and we hope that they become important to you. And again, it's just about the larger ecosystem. So pitch away. I think that's it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Emily, and Rockstar to jumping right back in there like that.
Or as little frazzled at first.
We'll have all three of our panelists come back on here now. And again, for those of you in the audience, feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll make sure those get answered. The first question that came in was Cody, and someone was asking about Insta storefronts for Instagram, and that you needed a certain amount of followers to be approved, and that approval process. You want to talk through that first, Cody?
Yeah, of course. So for the example that we showed, that instant storefront, that's just an ad type. So you don't have to have any kind of qualifications for that. The only requirement is that you do have your Facebook catalog connected and you have products uploaded. It does get a little bit tricky when we talk about Instagram checkout, which is the new feature. I think maybe what you were talking about. So with Instagram checkout, that process is still in beta right now. So there are no official requirements on what you need to have it. Right now, Instagram is selecting certain accounts to use that while they're planning out what that's going to look like as a mass rollout for everyone. It's obviously a lot more complicated because as you see in the example that I showed, all the links are going to go directly back to the website. Now with Instagram checkout, you're having to have inventory management and all that in real time. So it's a lot more complicated for your data sources. So there is an application process if you wanted to go ahead and apply for that, but right now it is still just a beta only process as they're figuring it out.
Excellent. Mark, so one of the things that you were speaking about, there's a lot of good stuff around like the types. When you're deciding between, so if I'm trying to reach out to, we're a B2B business, right? So if I'm trying to decide between, banners versus full advertorial, newsletters, like content versus awareness, like how do I decide between those platforms, and like what are the biggest like ROI generators, or how should I be measuring those things?
Yeah, so it's, first and foremost, the best thing to do is make sure that the sales executive or the account manager or whoever it is at the B2B platform, B2B publication, is a good consultative salesperson. You want to make sure that it's not someone who's going to say like, hey, I have item A and I think you should buy it. The opposite is they should sit with you and they should hear your needs and they should hear your objectives and they should hear your goals, and then they should offer things up in response. So each platform has its own ROI. It really depends, but just two examples. So Gabriel, for example, manufacturer of jewelry, beautiful stacking rings, bridal, a whole full jewelry suite. At the same time, though, they've really positioned themselves as being providers of service to the retailer on a holistic basis. Mm-hmm. And they've really gone out of their way in many different platforms, but really on JCK's native advertising platform, to do a whole series of articles that have to do with their business in general. And it's been quite successful for them. I mean, I did a Survey Monkey for another company, and in the comment section, a couple companies actually just offered up, like, Gabriel does this great job of letting us know that they're not just here to sell us physical pieces of jewelry. They're here to help us run our business better together. So that was an example. When I sat with Gabriel a few years ago and heard that desire, we immediately pivoted towards native advertising. Other folks just say, hey, listen, I want a ton of impressions. And I know that your website is attended to by people in the business every day. It's already targeted. I want to speak to the whole industry. I'm here for everybody. Those are often brands that everybody already knows, but it's like Coca-Cola. Like Coca-Cola never stops advertising. We all know what Coca-Cola is. They never stop advertising because it's just this constant reminder that they're there, so that when you're in front of the vending machine, you'll say, yeah, I think I'll have a Coke. Or when you're deciding to sell your business, you'll say, you know what, I should call Wilkerson. So that's an example there. And then again, like I was saying in depth on those, especially on the social media, if an independent designer, someone who's really looking, who's artistic, who's creative, who's design oriented, wants to get into those cool boutiques, then I would definitely say, social media is the way you want to go. So, but the big picture is find a consultative salesperson who's going to listen to your needs.
Thank you for that. Emily, you mentioned the best ways to get a pitch in, or make sure you understand what that publication is like going for, or interested at the time. Obviously, other than the obvious of read the freaking publication to make sure right? What are other ways that are kind of indicators for when you're planning stories out for another edition or something like that? Like, how can I understand what you're looking for or understand what you're going for at the time?
I think it's absolutely appropriate to ask for an editorial calendar.
Okay.
They won't give you a nitty gritty sort of like play by play, but they can tell you, this is our pearl issue, this is our fashion issue, this is our, sort of like indie retailer issue. And I think that is super helpful. And I don't think it's presumptuous at all. I think it's sort of like, hey, do you have a yearly calendar? Especially if you have a relationship with that editor already. It's like, okay, sure, I'll shoot it over to you. Trying to think of another way. I think it is a little. It does get a little when you're busy and you get a pitch that's like, "Hey, what are you working on now?" Totally fair question, but it changes hour by hour. So my response is typically like, let me get back to you in a bit with some things that I'm looking for. And then the things that I would be looking for would be things that would feed into features and typically print, which is a slower moving machine than online. But I will also say things like, what do you find interesting? What is like blowing your hair back right now? Because it may be interesting to me too. And they always say in journalism school, they say, and great journalists have said this too, they say, the thing that you start with is the thing that blows your hair back. The thing that makes you sort of go like, oh my God, did you hear this? Is the thing that you should lead with always in a pitch, even if it's something that seems tiny. I think that's kind of what you lead with. But to get a grasp on what people are looking for, you might sort of couch it in a pitch, like, this is happening. We're super excited about this. Do you think it would fit into something that you're doing? And then a journalist's response could be something to the effect of, yeah, it might. Let me get back to you on it. And then this is what happens though, Ben, is that people say, let me get back. And then they get buried with other work and they don't get back. And that's and people don't follow up. I can be genuinely interested in a piece of news, but I don't have time to kind of like contextualize it into the work that I have on my plate at that moment, but I could use it. Follow up again.
That's really good.
I think that's the thing. Follow up again, like, hey, just check in to see if this is of interest. And then at that point, kind of, you've done what you can do, I think. But yeah, I think asking for an editorial calendar, and then also asking if for an online publication, which increasingly is the case, ask them if they have certain columns on certain days. Like Amy Elliott and Brittany Simonitz at JCK, they don't blog every day, but they have specific things that they do on specific days. And I think it's totally appropriate and great for brands and companies to reach out and say, when do you have the All the Glitters blog? When do you have Brit Pick? When do you have these sort of columns? I would love to understand so that I can pitch you in a more, succinct way.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That ties in sort of that consultative sales approach too. Even Mark was talking about, like, strategic is everything, right? Cody, there was a chat that went in here that said, can you explain the part about choosing a product that can be added to Facebook or Instagram, then shared? I think they're talking about the product catalog, maybe.
The catalog. So we always get a lot of questions on this. Maybe for Couch Conference 2.0, we can do a full session for that. So with the catalog, you can do one of two things. So one, you can manually upload products. So if I have a storefront that has 50 products, I can say, I want to upload these 20 products, and I manually do that one at a time. The other option, and this is with most website providers, you can actually get a product link. So for example, Punchmark. If we're looking to upload all the products, we can go to Punchmark and say, hey, we're looking to do this. Can we get the product feed? Punchmark provides a feed that we can use for the catalog. That's going to bring in all the products. From there, now, once I'm in the catalog, I can see either what I uploaded manually or if I use a link to bring everything over. And from that point, I can pick and choose which one I want to feature in ads. So even though I might have all of the products that I put in the catalog, it doesn't mean I have to show all of them for ads. I can select the top 20 or 30, or it can change on what I'm talking about or even who I'm talking to. So the products can even vary based on your target audience as well. So through that, you have multiple options of what you want to upload, but it can be any and everything that you want.
No, that's good. Social, Emily, I'm gonna come back to you for a second. How much does the social PR cred come today? You hit on social a bit today when you were talking about, well, maybe this doesn't fit in your main beat, but does this fit? Can I get a social plug or something like that?
Yeah.
What do you see? Where do you see from the professional side, from the outbound side, where do you see social as being the valuable piece in PR and earned media today? Like, what is the street cred for that?
In terms of like compared to print or like an online story?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I think it can be huger. I don't have any numbers, but I will say anecdotally that you can get a ton more attention on a media property's Instagram than you can being featured as a resource or a topic embedded in their emailed newsletter. or in their newsletter. Again, it totally depends, but I think that people definitely need to stop thinking of Instagram as a second place placement. And I think that PR, great PR people, I think that they are so far ahead of us. I think that they've known that for a really long time. I think that their challenge is conveying that to their clients. If they are the one post that a national jeweler or a JCK or an L posts that day on Instagram, their piece is the one post. This is more impactful. This has more ricochet throughout culture than being featured in a print L page, and that's just what it is now, right?
Digital economy.
And right. I mean, and I think that getting a social hit is not some sort of like consolation prize. I think it is the prize.
That's good. That's good.
But I mean, obviously it depends. If you're number 4 in a carousel post, that's not huge. I mean, unless it's on the New York Times, at New York Times or whatever. But
Humans of New York or something like that. Yeah.
Humans of New York, or right. So that's what I would say. I would say kind of stop thinking about that as something that is like, a consolation.
Mark, on the print side, as we see print, because it's still very much alive and kicking, but is there a difference do you see a difference if you're consulting a client in print's effectiveness in B2B versus B2C, right? A lot of print, like the whole notions about print is really focused on this B2C environment. What about in the B2B space? Is it even more applicable still?
Yeah, well, it's a great point, because when I got on board in 2004, we were part of Read Business Information, which had something like 60 different trade magazines. And the internet has basically just destroyed the whole, that division has been closed for a long time. The pieces sold off, and many of those publications have just gone completely online. And certainly, and this sounds like I'm teasing, but there quite literally was a cement news. There's no reason for print with cement news. You're not going to have beautiful, elegant photographs of different types of cement. There has been a role, though, in print for jewelry, and JCK has benefited from that. And while our circulation has gone down, and who knows where the future lies in print does have that unique role that does play more in consumer. But when you get into anything that has to do with fashion and imagery and design, print executes on it more beautifully than anything else. And the other thing, now I sound like, a Magazine Publishers of America ad. The one thing that print does, that all research shows, is for readers, advertising is a welcome part of the print experience.
That's a really good point.
It's a wanted part. Part of the fun of September Vogue is taking the first 5 minutes to go through the spreads at the start of the book. Whereas in every other medium, advertising can be seen as an interruption. It can be seen as a nuisance or an annoyance. So, but it's quite a force that we're up against when it comes to fighting to keep print alive. But it does make sense in a few B2B publications or a few B2B industries, and we're one of them.
Excellent. And shout out to Steven that says, Mark, cement can be beautiful. And yes, it can. There's some beautiful cement out there. As long as it's not in blocks at the bottom of a lake on your feet. Like, cement is a beautiful thing. No. Well, thank you all. We are officially out of time. Thank you for being part of the inaugural Between the Cushions, our 2 cents from the Couch Conference. Can we give a virtual shout out to all of our panelists, to Mark, to Emily, to Cody today? Show them your love in the chat. One quick reminder, September 14th and 15th, Couch Conference 2.0, the full 2 days of Couch Conference. So we're coming back at you again. I bet you that if they will have us, we will be seeing all 3 of these panelists at our 2.0 in some way, shape, or form. Mark, Emily, Cody, thank you for sharing your time, your expertise, your amazing knowledge. Thank you so much. We love you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
To all of
Bye,
our couch
everybody.
potatoes out there, thank you. Stay safe. We will see you likely before September, but for sure September 14th and 15th. Love you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.